they're on a quest. Geek Force, they circled the idiot test. Geek Force, first and worst, second the best. Traveling to the past without a safety net.
Hello and welcome to Geek Force. We're going to be doing a bit of a restoration today in the style of Toy Palitoy, our friend David Moss. I do actually do restorations of toys, but I don't very often film them or put them on, probably because I can't be bothered usually to do it. I'm too lazy to film them. But we decided to do this one because it's a toy we've had a long time. I think we've had this about 40 years in actual fact. And it's a talking commander, a Palitoy Action Man talking commander. And as you can see, as usual, is the parts that are kind of always break on these. The head seems to always break, and it's because of this sort of plastic rubberized joint thing that holds them in place, and they always seem to just break away. You can see, look, as I'm actually doing this, the part inside actually just comes away. It goes brittle over a period of time, and the head just falls off. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Toy Palitoy's method for doing this, just to fix it back up and get him back to where he should be. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to kind of break away the rest of that plastic inside, and you can sort of see, if you get a pair of tweezers, it gets to a point where you can actually just pull this out and tip it out. So that is the basics of it. Unfortunately, there's always like little bits that drop off, so let's just make sure it's not rattling, because that would really annoy me if it did that. So yeah, there's still some little pieces in there. So the first thing to do is get rid of all those old bits that are brittle. As you can see, there's quite a lot. And you've got to kind of get under that piece there. I had considered taking this to pieces. This is one of the few Action Men, the Talking Man is one of the few Action Men that will actually unscrew. And I did wonder whether to do that, but I had second thoughts about it, because I just thought it works. This still actually works, and I don't want to tempt fate by taking him to pieces, because he actually still
Enemy tanks approaching.
works very nicely. I thought, if I take him to pieces, will he work anymore? So I'm not even risking it. There's a couple of things I've got to do on his uniform and stuff. There's nothing major on this. We've actually got all the pieces to him, but there's some little extra bits that need fixing up, and we can do that later. But this is the main part, so you can see that's all removed. Now this is the difficult part, because there's a sort of a cone shape in there that needs removing. Now I'm hoping that with a screwdriver I can get this out. Again, there's all this plastic part that is not very good, but if you kind of force the screwdriver into it, you can work your way around it, and hopefully this will come out. But you've got to be really careful, because it can obviously break the plastic, which is a problem. I mean, they were really well built. When you look at how these were put together, no wonder they lasted such a long time, because they were built to last. Apart from this annoying habit of the rubber that held them in place. So the idea is to keep going around it with the screwdriver, and eventually, it will pop out, but it's quite brutal. Look, that's the problem. That when you're doing that, I mean, obviously you're not going to see that once it's back in, but it's really difficult to get that. That for me is the hardest part, to get that peg out. So obviously be careful, but it will come out. I mean, part of me wonders whether it would be easier to heat the head up a little bit before, you know, like boil and pop, just to loosen it a little bit. I think maybe on the next one I do, that's what I'll do. So the next part, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. It's a case of replacing it with elastic, and you've got to have enough to kind of be able to get it under that peg in there, which is going to be difficult, and then to put it through both ends. So we've got to loop it through this end and into the hole there. Right, so there's nothing to hold it onto, and you can tie it. I mean, you could tie it multiple times, the elastic, but using Mr. Toy Palitoy's method, Lego is your friend. So I've got lots of these Lego Lancers that I've been using for different bits and bobs because they seem to fit a variety of scales for restoring toys. What we need to do is, I've already got part of a broken lance already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that down so it fits across and exactly across that neck. And that's really important that it fits exactly across it. So while I'm doing this, what I'll do is just make sure I get it right. So it's just lining it up. And that should, oops, let's see, I can't get it in. That should line up and drop across the neck that way. It does work. if my hands were still enough, oh dear. But yeah, you get the idea. That's going to go across that neck when we do it. So the next part, this is just wire for putting up picture frames. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to tie it, I'm going to twist it around the elastic as tight as I can, because what I've got to do is then pull this through the small gap in Talking Commander's torso and in the neck section. So hopefully, if I do this tight enough, it should work. It seems, I think the peg on the Talking Action Man, I might be wrong, but I think that peg is a lot smaller than it is on the Eagle Eye Action Man. So that's, you know, immediately going to make it a bit more of a problem. Right, let's see. Plan B. The problem I've got, I don't want really to do this because I'm worried that I'll shift the mechanism around, but at the same time I want the head back on. And the elastic I'm using, if I don't use that elastic, I think the other one that I've got will be way too thin to hold it in place properly. I like this elastic that I've been using because it's got a lot of tension in it and it does work well. So we'll see. But I'm dreading taking this off because, as I say, it works, and what I don't want to do is end up finding that it no longer works when I put it back together. And that's the problem, look, that yeah, because that peg is so small. That's fine, because it means I can thread that underneath quite happily, and I know it's not going to interfere with, I'm glad that's in a sealed unit. I was concerned that I'd take that out and it would drop out, but that's alright. Let's put him back the right way. I don't want his bits to be on in the wrong place. So if I can just, what I'll do, I can force that down. This is where one pair of hands, it could be quite tricky, but I've got no choice. So let's see. Let's put that there. That there. Let me check that's right. Yeah, that's the right arm, that's the left arm. So if I just level those arms. Like I say, you never know what you're going to get really until you take one to pieces. And the thing is that when I do the next one, when I do an Eagle Eye one, it will get easier. But this one is, as you can see, it's just a little bit different. Right, let's make sure. No, this is going to be a problem because that has got to go back in. Because all it does is sit in that ball joint there. Come on. You know you want to. Come on. I'm afraid I was terribly drunk. Right. That was a nightmare. So right, it's probably best to have too much elastic rather than too little, I'm thinking at this stage. Although we've got to pull it tight, so right. I'm going to put probably a bit more than I need because I really don't know if that'll work or not yet. And I've got to get both pieces through there, which might prove problematic. We'll see. Come on. Okay, let's try a different one. Nothing's ever straightforward, is it? Okay, let's just get the tweezers to pull that through. That's one. That's two. And then this, as I say now, we've got to sit that piece. I'm going to put the screwdriver across the top just so I can get it tight, and then that way it should hold. Because what I don't want is for it to drop back through. Because this now needs to be really, really as tight as I can get it to make it so that stays in place and everything. And that's quite tough. That's why I wanted to use this elastic, because it's actually a really quite strong elastic I'm using. So that screwdriver, all I'm doing there is just to keep it pulling. Now, that's not bad. I think realistically that is probably as tight as I can get it, unless, let's move it down there, this looks wrong. If I hold it between my knees, I can probably pull it tighter. Yeah, I can a little bit. Yeah. So now I've got to somehow, if I use another small screwdriver, and prise that apart a little bit, just a little bit, like that. I'm hoping I can get this piece in between, if I've done it right. And it should, I'm hoping, keep it level so it won't pull through. To be honest, there's enough there to stop it anyway, and that's pretty tight up. So that, I don't think that's really going to go anywhere, I'm hoping, because there's quite a big knot there anyway. So what I will do is, again, if I just tighten it as much as I can onto that. So that was the part of the Lego lance that I've just put in there, and I've just dropped it basically across that gap just to stop it for anything from pulling back through. Because I don't think, to be fair, I don't actually think it will with the amount of knots I'm just about to put in, because people do tend to, you can just knot these anyway. But I just want to be doubly secure on it, because what I don't want to be doing is actually going back to doing this again. Right, so I'm going to leave that amount and that amount. I think that should be enough, because I've got to fit it back inside the head, and what I don't want is for that to be in the way of the eye mechanism or anything. It shouldn't be. Let's just check. There, you see, that's the problem. Because if it's in the way of the eye mechanism, then it's not going to work. That should be okay, I think. I'm not convinced that's okay. You just have to push these pieces down, I think. Make sure they're out the way. So, screwdriver just to push them in. Because what you don't want is friction against that eye mechanism. Oops. See, the reality of this is it probably will keep firing out, and that's why I didn't want that to happen. I don't really want to cut any more of that off either, because if I do, I've just got a feeling that it wouldn't hold very well. Let's just push that in, let's see. Well, that's a bit neater. Yep, eye mechanism works. Just click that down and hopefully, there we go, back to working. And he's even got a sharpshooter, and the eyes do actually move. To be honest, I think they've always been quite tight on this particular one, to be honest with you. That looks as good as it's getting. Yeah, he's still got eyes that move just, and yeah, not while you're naked like that, mate. Let's hope not. And so, this is a completed commander. I've had to put a new piece of string onto his ID. We'd obviously lost that years ago, and now I've managed to get one that's the same sort of material. I've just fixed his holster as well. You can't see that, but the holster was actually ripped apart. But I fixed that just with electrical tape. If you put electrical tape, cut it to size on the inside of it, it actually it sticks to it quite nicely. And I just use super glue to kind of fill in the joints and everything. So this is our original Talking Commander, and as I think this is probably about 40 years old now. I think we had it about 82. It did come out before that. I think the original one, I'm right in saying, had a like a radio pack to begin with. It was a field radio pack, but then they made it into this one, and you can see this is the eagle eye one. His eyes still move. We've just cleaned his hair up as well, because he got a mucky head, and his gun's in place. And what's really nice about this is that if I pull the cord,
Stand out the patrol.
he still actually says all the different.
Advance in single file. Enemy tanks approaching.
Sounds like the guy who does a lot of the
Enemy tanks
voiceovers.
approaching.
So sometimes it just repeats. I'm not sure
Enemy
why.
tanks approaching.
Yeah, we know. Come on, does it sound something different?
Give me some cover.
There we go.
Enemy tanks approaching.
He likes that saying, doesn't he?
Enemy tanks approaching.
Well, you get the idea. He's a bit repetitive.
What's the password?
Oh,
Send out the patrol.
I don't know. I think there's only probably about 4 phrases on it anyway, as far as I can remember. So there he is, a completed Talking Commander. His head back on. I'm really quite pleased with that, because that has sat there for so long. I bet that's probably sat there for at least 25 years without that head on. So I'm quite pleased to have him back to fully operational. There we go, and that's how to restore it.
Geek Force, they're on a quest. Geek Force, they circle the idiot test. Geek Force, first the worst, second the best. Traveling to the past without